It started on one of those mornings that make you forget the world can be mean. The kind where the mist still hangs low over the pasture, and the only sounds are the horses snorting and the hum of the wind through old cedar posts. I was tossing hay, just breathing in that quiet, when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. At first I figured it was the mail guy lost again, but this wasn't the lazy sound of a pickup easing down the lane. This had weight to it, like purpose. By the time I turned, a black SUV was crawling past the private property sign I'd bolted to that gate myself. No plates, tinted windows. The sort of vehicle you see in bad TV when somebody's about to get served papers or snatched by the feds. 3 guys stepped out first. Big, square-shouldered, matching navy polos with some shiny logo over the chest. And behind them, a woman with a haircut sharp enough to slice bread. Tablet in hand, heels sinking into the gravel like she owned every inch of it. I wiped my hands on my jeans, walked down the path, kept my tone polite. "Mornin'. You folks lost?" She didn't even glance up. "You must be Mr. Rowan Keller," she said like she was checking off a box. "Owner of Parcel 14C, formerly county auction property, currently operating an unregulated agricultural holding." I blinked. "That's a fancy way of saying farm." Then she smiled. One of those smiles people wear when they're about to ruin your day but want you to thank them for it. "I'm Madison Vance, disciplinary coordinator for the Clearwater Ridge Homeowners Association. We've received several complaints regarding unauthorized livestock fencing, odor violations, and visual disruption to the community aesthetic." I just stared for a beat. "Aesthetic?" I said. "Lady, the nearest stucco house is half a mile up the hill. You're standing in horse crap, not Beverly Hills." Her eyes didn't move. "Clearwater Ridge maintains jurisdiction within the buffer zone, extending beyond the residential lots. Your farm falls under that visual sphere. There are 2 options: voluntary integration into our HOA or formal enforcement through county code compliance." Behind her, one of the meatheads wandered toward my porch, filming with his phone like he was making a nature documentary. Another tugged at the latch on my barn gate. "Ma'am," I said quietly, "you got about 5 seconds to get off my land." "Let's not escalate," she replied. "We're here in an official capacity." "Official?" I laughed once. "You got a badge, warrant, paper from the county?" Silence. Just the horses shifting behind me, sensing the tension. The tall one puffed his chest. "You think you can scare us, old man?" "We're authorized to inspect perimeter structures." I stepped closer, slow, steady. "You touch that gate again, you'll learn what unauthorized feels like." He smirked, took another half step, and something in me clicked back to the old training. Quantico, sand pits, close quarters drills. That mechanical calm they wire into you when chaos is breathing down your neck. He reached out. Wrong move. I deflected his arm, twisted the wrist, heard the pop. Not a sound I enjoy, but sometimes the body remembers before the mind can interfere. He hit the dirt, screaming. His buddy lunged. Momentum did half the job for me. 2 seconds later, he was down 2, wheezing in the dust. The third guy froze. Madison's jaw dropped. "You assaulted my staff!" she shrieked. "You're going to jail." I pulled my phone, thumb steady. "Lassen County Dispatch," I said when the operator picked up. "This is Rowan Keller. 4 individuals entered private property without consent. 2 restrained. No weapons. Request law enforcement." By the time the cruisers rolled in, the sun was burning through the fog. Sheriff Ben Myers stepped out, hand resting on his belt but not drawing. We'd gone to high school together, though he'd gotten quieter with age. "Mornin', Rowan," he said. "Heard you got some excitement." "Yeah," I said. "These folks think they run the county now." Madison jumped in, waving her tablet. "Officer, arrest him." He broke my associate's arm. We were conducting an HOA inspection under Clearwater Ridge Authority. Ben looked at me, then at her. "You got that authority in writing?" "Of course," she said, tapping the screen, then froze. Whatever file she thought she had, it wasn't loading. I handed Ben my own phone. Footage from the front gate. "You'll see them ignore the sign." He watched, whistled low. "Looks clear enough. Private property means private." He nodded to his deputy. "Get IDs, run them, no permits. No jurisdictional paperwork. Nothing." By the time the medics hauled away the guy with the busted arm, Madison's voice had gone from confident to brittle. She tried one last threat. "You'll be hearing from our lawyers." "Looking forward to it," I said, picking up her dropped tablet and sliding it into my pocket. Evidence. For a week, things were quiet again. I almost convinced myself it was over, until the certified envelope showed up in my mailbox. Law offices of Klein and Rowe, representing Clearwater Ridge HOA. Inside, 4 pages of legal nonsense: aggravated assault, emotional distress, obstruction of regulatory inspection, visual sabotage of the community aesthetic. I laughed so hard I scared the chickens, but laughter doesn't stop lawsuits. So I called someone who could. Julia Wren was the best kind of attorney. Former JAG, mean with paperwork and allergic to bullies. We'd met years back when she handled a zoning dispute for a buddy of mine. She listened quiet the whole time, then said, "All right, Roe, let's not just win. Let's salt the earth." She started digging. County archives, incorporation filings, zoning overlays. Took her 2 days to find the crack. Clearwater Ridge had slipped a visual influence buffer zone into their founding documents without public notice. No hearings, no signatures from adjacent landowners, just penciled themselves authority over land they didn't own. "That's not a gray area," she said, flipping her laptop toward me. "That's fraud." We filed a countersuit: malicious trespass, defamation, false representation of authority, and damages for time lost and livestock stress. By Friday, the courthouse clerk knew Julia by name. Madison, meanwhile, doubled down. She posted on the neighborhood Facebook group, "Unstable Ex-Military Assault Civic Inspectors," claimed I ran an illegal livestock operation. Folks online ate it up. The internet's always starving for villains. I didn't argue. Didn't post rebuttals. Just uploaded the raw footage from my cameras. No captions, no music, just timestamps and truth. Within hours, it spread. Local ranchers, veteran pages, even a few law and order forums picked it up. Someone edited it with dramatic slow-mo and called it "When the HOA Meets a Marine Handshake." I didn't ask for fame, but I won't lie. It felt good watching bullies squirm under. Daylight. That's when Madison tried her next. Stunt. An emergency restraining order claiming my video endangered her emotional safety. Julia walked into that hearing like she was strolling into a diner. She laid down 2 stacks of paper, one with Madison's Facebook posts calling me violent, the other with court-verified footage of her trespassing. The judge read both, adjusted her glasses, and said flatly, "Denied." "Looks retaliatory." Madison's face went white as chalk. You'd think that'd slow her down. Instead, it made her desperate. 2 days later, Julia got an anonymous email, subject line, "You should see what she's hiding." Attached was a USB drive. Inside, internal HOA memos. Real ones, headers, dates, sender tags. One read, "We need to make an example of Keller. Compliance is not optional." Another listed bullet points: approach dominant, record confrontation, a push for escalation. Julia leaned back, grinning. Well, look at that. Malicious intent in 12-point calibri. Still, a smoking gun's only useful if someone lights it. And fate handed us a match. One afternoon, the tall guy, the same one whose wrist I'd twisted, called Julia's office asking for immunity. Name was Jeff Slade. Said he'd been hired under the table by Madison herself, cash only, to apply pressure. No contract, no payroll record. He handed over text messages, receipts, everything. "That's our witness," Julia said, eyes bright. "And that's her coffin." By the time the first pre-trial hearing rolled around, the courthouse lobby looked like a movie set. Reporters, neighbors, even a few ranch hands I knew came to watch the show. Madison strutted in wearing pearls and fury, flanked by a lawyer who charged by the syllable. I wore clean jeans buttoned down, and my old Marine belt buckle, because respect doesn't mean surrender. The judge, Catherine Mueller, ran her courtroom like a sniper range. No wasted movement, no patience for drama. Madison's lawyer opened with a monologue about violent assault on community agents. Julia waited, calm, then dismantled every claim. She played the footage, laid out the zoning maps, produced a statement from the county itself, confirming my parcel had never fallen under HOA jurisdiction. You could feel the air change, like folks in the back row suddenly realized the emperor wasn't wearing any damn clothes. Then Julia called her witness, Mr. Jeff Slade to the stand. Madison stiffened. Jeff walked in wearing a plain shirt, eyes down but steady. He took the oath, sat, and said, "We were hired by Madison Vance personally. Cash job, told to make Keller feel intimidated. Recorded if he pushed back." Madison's lawyer shot up. "Objection. Hearsay." The judge didn't even blink. Overruled. Julia smiled, asked, "Did you believe you were acting under legal authority?" Jeff shook his head. "We were told HOA rules covered his land. I found out later they didn't. I shouldn't have been there." Then Julia slid printed screenshots across the bench, texts from Madison's number, time-stamped, talking about making a statement and escalation if necessary. The courtroom went dead quiet. Madison tried to speak, mouth dry. "Those are taken out of context," she managed. "Context," the judge repeated softly. "Being what, exactly?" No answer. When we walked out of that courthouse, the local station's camera lights hit like sunlight. I didn't say a word. Julia just told reporters, "This case is about boundaries, both legal and moral." And for the first time in months, I believed her. The thing about battles like this, real ones, not the kind fought with guns or flags, is that they don't end when the gavel drops. They end when people finally stop pretending they were ever in the right. And with Madison, that day came slower than justice, but it came. About a week after that first hearing, Julia got word that the county had opened a full administrative audit on Clearwater Ridge. See, once the judge saw those texts and fake zoning overlays, she wanted to know how deep the rot went. Turns out, pretty damn deep. County officials started pulling every document the HOA had filed in the last 5 years. Permits, fines, maps, minutes. And like termites under a coat of paint, all the corruption started wriggling out. Dozens of fines issued without hearings, unapproved construction fees, even a slush account that mysteriously covered personal travel for board members. And there it was, right in black and white. Madison's name on multiple altered parcel maps. She'd literally redrawn property lines to expand her buffer zone. She'd been queen of a cardboard kingdom, and she didn't think anyone would notice. Meanwhile, I just kept my head down, feeding my horses, mending fences, trying to remember what peace felt like before all this nonsense started. The thing about silence is, it means more after you've heard shouting for too long. But the storm wasn't quite over. Madison still had a lawyer, and that lawyer still thought he could talk his way out of hell. They filed every delaying motion they could dream up. Technical challenges, jurisdictional appeals, even a motion claiming I'd violated community harmony protocols. I swear that was the real phrase. Julia just grinned and said, "Let them dig deeper, Ro. They're shoveling their own grave." When the final hearing came, it felt like the whole county showed up. Ranchers, reporters, a few folks from town who just wanted to see the spectacle. The courthouse smelled like dust, old wood, and anticipation. Madison walked in looking human, finally. No pearls, no power suit, just tired eyes and a blazer that didn't quite fit. Her lawyer kept whispering, but she barely nodded. Julia looked sharp, calm, every strand of hair exactly where she wanted it. I sat behind her, quiet, letting the whole thing unfold like a slow dawn. Judge Muller didn't waste a single breath. She opened with a summary of findings: trespassing under false pretenses, falsification of jurisdictional maps, malicious defamation, unlawful coordination of private enforcement. Each charge landed like a hammer. Then she looked straight at Madison and said, "This court finds that Clearwater Ridge HOA, under your direction, acted outside its legal authority, caused deliberate harm, and manipulated regulatory filings to extend power unlawfully." The silence in that room was heavy enough to touch. When she read the judgment, $220,000 in compensatory damages, payable jointly by the HOA and Madison personally, I didn't even smile. I just breathed. For the first time in months, the air didn't taste like anger. Then came the real kicker. The judge referred the entire case to the district attorney for potential criminal charges: document falsification, conspiracy to trespass, abuse of power. Madison didn't say a word. Her lawyer packed his briefcase like it was a funeral. Outside, the reporters swarmed. Julia made a short statement about accountability and transparency. I stayed behind on the courthouse steps, arms crossed, watching the traffic roll by. Felt strange, like the world was finally catching up to the truth. A week later, the county sheriff's office suspended the HOA's operating license. No more fines. No more patrol cars prowling people's driveways, pretending to enforce lawn color codes. Just silence. And silence, when you've earned it, is beautiful. Word spread quick. Clearwater Ridge was done. Madison's reputation collapsed faster than her balance sheet. Turns out she'd poured personal savings into the HOA's legal defense, betting they'd win and pay her back. Bad bet. Within a month, foreclosure signs went up on her house. Folks said she moved 2 counties over to live with her sister. I didn't celebrate. Not out loud, anyway. Revenge tastes best when you let it cool a little. Julia and I met one last time over coffee in town. She slid a folder across the table. "Paperwork for the fund," she said. "Line in the Dirt Foundation, legal support for rural homeowners harassed by HOAs. I stared at the name, grinned. "You sure you don't want to run for office?" She smirked. "Nah, I prefer beating bullies one lawsuit at a time." I took a small slice of that settlement, put it straight into the fund. The rest went into building security that'd make Fort Knox nod in approval. A reinforced gate, iron fencing, drone perimeter, and a sign I'd been dreaming about since the first day they drove up that road. Took 2 weeks to make. 8 feet wide, steel plate, black matte finish. My buddy Joe from the metal shop welded every letter by hand. The morning I set it up, the air was clean and sharp, the kind that smells like hay and diesel and freedom. I dug the post holes myself, bolted it into oak uprights thick as my leg. When I stepped back, the words gleamed in the light. Armed, trained, private. This land is not for sale, not for HOA. And down in the corner, in smaller print, just for flavor. Not in your HOA. A few days later, my neighbor Jerry rolled up on his ATV, whistled low when he saw it. "Well, hell, Rowan," he said. "That ought to keep him out." "Damn right," I told him. We sat on the porch after that, drinking lemonade out of mason jars, watching the hawks circle over the ridge. Jerry told me some newlyweds had bought Madison's old place at auction. Nice folks, no HOA nonsense. Just wanted chickens and quiet. That suited me just fine. When he left, I stayed out there a while longer. The sun was sinking low, painting everything gold, and the horses were grazing near the fence line like the world had never been disturbed. I thought about all the noise, the lawsuits, the lies, the way power makes people forget what respect is. And I realized something simple. Peace isn't the absence of trouble. It's the ability to face it, stand your ground, and not lose yourself in the process. Folks still stop by sometimes wanting to shake my hand or take pictures of that sign. I tell them the same thing every time. This wasn't about winning. It was about drawing a line once and for all between what's yours and what's none of their damn business. So yeah, maybe I'm a legend now, like Jerry said, but I don't need a title or a trophy. I've got my land, my animals, and the quiet I earned back the hard way. And that's enough. You know, I still think about Madison sometimes. Not in anger, just in wonder. Wonder how someone gets so wrapped up in control that they forget what freedom feels like. Maybe someday she'll figure it out. Or maybe not. Either way, I'm done letting people like her write the rules on ground they never owned. So, if you're listening and you've ever had some clipboard warrior tell you what you can and can't do on land you bled for, remember this. Paper power dies fast when it meets the real thing. Now I've said my piece, but tell me, what would you have done if 3 strangers rolled up your driveway claiming your life was under their control? Would you have stood your ground, or signed the papers just to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to hear where you draw your line in the dirt.